Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Tuesday morning, June 21st. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room's open there. I did pop the link in there to the website we've been looking at for a few months now, and that's Robert Burney's website, Joy to You and Me, and it's www.joy2meu.com. And he's got some great info on there. You know, if you just get on his web page there and on his website and look around at the site index, you can see, like, he has so many pages, and there's just a lot of information there. I don't think we'll cover it all, but I wanted to look at a few of the topics that were there dealing with inner child healing, codependency, boundary work, and whatnot. There's also a section on relationship stuff, and so, you know, I might take a little bit of a look at that, but there's a lot of material there. Hopefully everybody will check it out, and he's got a great website. So Robert Burney, he's a spiritual teacher, he's an author, he's also a codependence therapist and a grief counselor, and so he does, you know, he's just working with this stuff, and he's a survivor, and so he's, you know, he knows because he's been there, you know what I mean? So he works with people, so he's got a great site, and you can contact him if you want to, and he's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, which I haven't read yet, and I'd like to get a hold of it. But a lot of his excerpts from his book are on his web pages here, so it's great stuff. And today I wanted to take a look at positive affirmations. I'm just sort of scrolling through and finding stuff that I think, you know, is good for me and hopefully help somebody else out too. And positive affirmations, that stuff is very, it's good to know how to do that. I know when I first started my healing journey 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, I started saying positive affirmations because I realized that I needed to learn how to love myself. I needed to learn how to help myself. So I thought, okay, I need to be good to myself. So that's the whole idea of positive affirmations. And I started to believe it after I started saying these things, you know, every day. I'd go through these positive affirmations to block out that critical parent voice that was always in my head, you know, causing me a lot of grief, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of bad memories. And I started believing these positive affirmations, like I do love myself, and I do deserve to have a good life, and I do deserve to be here, and different things like that. It did make a huge difference in my life, and so I hope everybody will, you know, take a look at these web pages and hopefully get something out of it. And yeah, I'm not a counselor or a therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows on Blog Talk Radio, and I say this on every show. It's important for people to know I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio, and I want to be one more voice speaking out against abuse, standing up for child rights, and also another voice for, you know, to encourage other people who may, you know, be survivors of abuse, excuse me, and child abuse and whatnot, to just to be another voice of encouragement. There's a lot of people out here who are doing, you know, a lot of great work. There's a lot of survivors out here who are just, you know, another voice for people like myself to realize that, you know, that it is worth it, and we can do it, and that we, you know, we do need to reach out and get help where we can. And, you know, I'm doing my stuff self-help, so, you know, it's okay for me because I'm sort of tracking my progress as I go along. But some people can't, you know, may not be able to do self-help, and that's okay. You know, I made a deal with myself and a commitment that if I couldn't do self-help, that I would go and get professional help. And so, you know, whatever it is that helps us to get through this, you know what I mean, is what we should do. And so there's no shame in it. The shame doesn't belong to us. That's the thing. The shame belongs to the abusers. You know what I mean? That's not our shame. It's unfortunate that we have to carry that around until we figure it out. And the same with the guilt. It's not our problem. It's not our fault. But of course, we're left with the aftermath, and we're left to deal with what happened to us. But it certainly wasn't our fault, and the shame doesn't belong to us. And so, you know, now as soon as I realized that, I thought, yeah, that's true. This is none of my fault. So, you know, if I need to reach out and get professional help, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the best thing I could do because I'd be helping myself. And that's important. We have to be good to ourselves. So I like these positive affirmations. And, yeah, I have a couple people in the chat room here. And good morning to you guys. So yeah, we're going to take a look at these web pages here. And I'm just kicking somebody off of here. There we go. That person's gone for good. So, yeah, so we'll just get right into this topic here, and we'll just take a look at some of these positive affirmations. And it's setting boundaries with codependence, and this is from a section of the codependence pages. Positive affirmations are one of the single most powerful and vital tool in the recovery process. This is from Robert Burney. And codependence is a condition caused by growing up in a shame-based, emotionally dishonest society, which teaches us false beliefs about the nature and purpose of life. And we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not shameful, sinful human creatures who have to earn spiritual salvation. And I think a lot of people, even myself, sort of, I know myself for sure, felt like that, you know what I mean, just growing up the way that I did, and around a whole lot of negativity and a lot of, because my parents didn't have a good view of life, they didn't have a good view of themselves, they didn't have a good feeling about life, and they felt that they were evil, everybody was evil, their children were evil. So they set us up to believe that, mankind is just truly evil, and that, actually, a lot of people are truly evil, that's for sure. But the thing is that we don't start out that way. You think of a little baby, a precious little baby, they don't start out that way. They're just innocent little babies until life gets to them, whatever it is. And you take a child who's been, some children because of, we know this, there are children little babies and children who grow up with mental disorders and whatnot, who had a beautiful childhood and were loved and nurtured and cared for, and they still, they went through, for whatever reason, chemical imbalances or whatever, it shouldn't have happened, because they grew up in this nurturing, loving, normal environment that should produce the same thing. It's what it's the whole idea behind what you sow is what you reap. If you sow love and nurturing and care and concern and normal, like what we people consider a normal behavior into a child's life, you would think that that's the way a child would continue on, but that's not always the case, and we know this. But it's just that it sets people up, child abuse sets people up on a bad road, to start with, right? Unless there's some type of positive, some sort of influence in that child's life, that's what they're going to grow up with. So it sets the ball rolling in motion for people to feel that, that society is truly evil and that mankind is truly bad, and there are good people out there. I started to realize this when I got older. I had met enough people, especially by the time I was probably around, I'd say 11, 12, started to realize that there were good people out there. They just weren't in my family, and that, the odd person I'd run into, friends' parents or whatever, or teachers, some of my teachers, people that lived on the street that we lived on, there were some people that I thought, these people, they seem like good people, because they were smiling, they were happy, they weren't screaming and shouting, and they weren't, hurting their own family members. And so I just noticed, and teachers were positive, positive influence or whatever. I had some bad teachers too, so I think everybody does. There's all both kinds out there. But you start as a young person growing up in a home full of violence and anger and rage and hatred. You start to realize that not everybody's like that, especially when you get older and you start meeting people and associating with other people. You start to think, wow, there are good people out here. This is what I want. This is, it's much more appealing than getting hurt and getting and living in this mess, in this hellhole. It's much more appealing to live with people where it's calm, peaceful, especially to a young person. You know what I mean? Like, I rebelled in my teen years, but that was just because of my environment. But I think, had I grown up with people who were loving and decent, there would have been no reason for me to take on these attitudes that life is horrible, people are evil, and that, that I'm evil, right? It has a lot to do with environment, right? And so, as survivors of abuse, we have to change that environment in our minds. We have to change the way we feel about ourselves and the way we feel about life. That's why he says here, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not shameful, sinful human creatures who have to earn spiritual salvation. What we need to do, he says here, is to learn to accept that state of grace. And he goes on to say, the way we do that is to change the attitudes and beliefs within us that tell us that we are not lovable. And I know that's what I did when I first started my healing journey 4 years ago. I just started telling myself, I do love myself, I do matter, I do count, because the the tape that kept playing around in my head, the critical parent voice was my mother's voice telling me all these horrible things when I was a child, and even a teenager, and even an adult. I mean, my mother was toxic, and she was mentally ill, and she was horribly abused herself, and she didn't know how to be kind. She had a real hard time being kind to anybody, including herself. And so, I would hear her voice popping into my head all the time, the old stuff that she would tell me, which was that, I was no good, I was just worthless, I was useless, I was stupid, I was a bad kid, I was evil, I was, a slut and a whore and all of this stuff that was at the age of like 10 years old, 9 years old. I mean, I didn't even know what those words really meant. But just telling me that, she didn't want me. And all of this stuff kind of put this, thing on me that I wasn't lovable and that I was this bad person and that I was evil and I should have been dead with all the other babies, the stillborn babies before me. This is what my mother used to tell me. And so I started to believe that, because of what she was pounding into my head. And then that critical parent voice stayed with me all the way through my life, until finally when I started my healing journey, I started to negate that stuff with positive stuff. And as soon as I hear those critical parent voices coming into my head, I'd be like, no, I don't have to listen to that anymore, because I do count, I do matter, what we have to matter to ourselves. See, because what I realized 4 years ago when I started my healing journey is that it really makes no difference to me what my family thinks about me. They're never going to come around and say the right thing. They're never going to be able to take away that pain, because the members of my family that are left are pretty much so dysfunctional. They're not going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? It's not like they're healthy and I'm the only one with issues because of the child abuse. I mean, my family is messed up. You know what I mean? So it's not like they can ever say the right things or do the right things to make me feel better. So I can't even expect that from them, So it's not like, even if they were here for me, they wouldn't still be able to take away this old pain and this old stuff from so long ago, right? This is all from many years ago. So I thought, I have to do this. I have to believe, that truly I am worth it, and I do count, I do matter, and I had to learn to love myself and say, I'm none of those things that my mother said about me. I'm none of those things that my family said about me. I'm none of those things that my dad has said about me. I do have to own the stuff that's true. For instance, if I'm, being irresponsible, throughout my life I've actually been quite irresponsible with money and finances and just quitting jobs whenever I want to, because I don't take criticism very well. So criticism on the job is a huge issue for me. And because it's just stemming from my abuse, right, from always being under my mom's thumb and being criticized just for being alive, right, because I didn't die, right, which I was supposed to according to my mother, right. And so, just criticized for being alive, really, and causing her grief because I was on the planet, which was ridiculous, a little small child like that. It's not our fault, right? But, I started to have to believe this stuff, that, no, I am worth it, I do count, and we all do. That, every single person that comes into this world, born into this world, we're given life. And this is a beautiful gift, right? I used to not think so when I was young, and I thought that I should be dead and that God should just kill me, and God would take all these people around me, my brother and my best friend and different people that I loved, and truly who actually did love me. He would take those people, he would leave me here in this mess with these evil, hateful, hatred, filled people. So I used to sit there and think, this is horrible. Like, I didn't care about the gift of life, for so many years. And then finally I started to realize, no, this is a huge gift. And all of us are supposed to be here. And I believe this, and this is just my belief. And that we're not supposed to be suffering. We're supposed to be at peace, because peace feels good. I finally got to experience peace 4 years ago when I decided to go on my healing journey. And actually it was because I talk a lot about it on my Sunday show, my Mount Bethel Christian Bible Study, because I was finally realized that, no, I found my place with God. I found my peace, because before that I was pretty sure that I was going, I was headed for hell, because I was born into hell and had all these hellish thoughts and hatred in my heart. And then that was all replaced by these feelings of love and compassion and mercy and care and concern, which is what should be in a person's heart. You think about it, I mean, that's what all children deserve. You have a bunch of people out there abusing children when they should be caring about them and loving them and nurturing them and unconditional love, like God, unconditional love. It's like we know kids are going to screw up. We know that parents aren't perfect, but there's this unconditional love and care and concern, mercy. Where's the mercy, when children are being abused, right? I mean, I grew up in this home where there was no mercy. There was no mercy for anybody. And we were at my parents' mercy, is what we were at. And that was horrible because they weren't showing any mercy, right? And so we could be begging for mercy and it wouldn't help because they were just going to dish out what they were going to dish out. And, for me, like when I started to feel these other feelings and let all that sort of, that hatred go and that evil, really hatred-filled hearts, what I had, anger and rage and all kinds of stuff, that started to be replaced by compassion and love and care and concern for people and for myself, empathy and things like this that I think are good and are from God, right? Because I believe that God is good. A lot of people think that God is bad, but I believe that God is good, and everything that is good is God. And so, for me to replace all that hatred and stuff, it took me a little while to allow that to happen, that process in my heart. And I'm still working on parts of it. That's obviously why I'm still on my healing journey, is because there's still parts of it. It's like a cancer, and it just spreads through. That stuff was like that hatred and that shame and that rage and all that stuff from my life, from my past, was eating at me like a cancer. It was killing me. And so there's still little bits and pieces of it left in there. You know what I mean? And I need to remove it. I need to actually, and it's going to have to be me do it. And so that's what I'm doing, is reaching in to find out where these little bits and pieces are left and get rid of it in order for me to be a whole, healed person, So that's what I'm working on. But these positive affirmations are very important, right? I think it's very important to start, to learn to think and feel different about ourselves. That's what I had to do. So I had to stop seeing myself as the person that my family painted me as, which was this, idiot who was just a whiner and also irresponsible and didn't deserve anything and still don't, And I mean, I'm just like, no, that's just not true at all. You know what I mean? I'm a caring person. I'm a loving person. I'm a good person. I would help people if I can. I'm not a bad person. You know what I mean? And my family would like to make me out to be this really bad person, but they always have ever since I was a kid, right? So that's the problem. And then all the way through my teen years. And of course it affected me greatly because I started to see myself the way that they saw me and were presenting it to me. And I started to become that person that they were painting, right? Because of that. So I had to change that around so I could learn, who I am and who I really am. And so it's taken me, like I'm saying, for at least 4 years, right? I really didn't do any work before that. Not much. I did try to actually maintain some sanity and present myself as a normal human being so I can work and live, but I hadn't really done any real looking in on this until I started my healing journey. And so when I started these positive affirmations, it was very important. And so he says here, positive affirmations are so vital in recovery because we all have a critical parent voice inside that judges and blames us or shames us, that negatively affirm us hundreds of times a day. So it takes a lot of reprogramming to start accepting that we are lovable and unconditionally loved. I like that. And it's true. It takes a lot of reprogramming. I've had to do huge reprogramming. I'm still working on it. Like, I still have that. Sometimes that critical voice will come in at the weirdest times and just pop into my head, and I'll have to, tune it out and then replace it with something positive. So he's got some here. Positive affirmations that say, this is from Robert Burney. It says, all my experiences are opportunities to gain more power, clarity, and vision. And so taking a look at all of our experiences. And I have DeMarco says in the chat room, forgiveness. Forgiveness is your next step. True forgiveness may be the next step in answering your callers. Yeah, I don't usually take callers on this line because I'm usually by myself. Normally I don't have very many people tuning in live in the chat room, so I don't know who's here. And I'll check my switchboard, and not too many people are there. So I have somebody on the switchboard here. I get a lot of trolls as well. I get tired of talking to trolls. So, those people just call that are bothering people and, hurting people, right? They just need to go away. He says, I have a right to ask for and expect something in life. And that's true, because most we don't even have to be abused to think that we don't deserve anything. Lots of people take on that attitude, and I'm not sure why, that belief system that we don't deserve anything good. You don't even have to be abused to actually experience that, but especially people who have been abused don't feel like they have the right to ask for or expect something in life, right? Because you're just possibly told the most worst things as a child, the most horrible things as a child from toxic people, maybe even mentally ill parents like mine, who can't show a decent, set of beliefs to a child, right? Because my parents didn't think they deserved anything good in life, so they certainly didn't pass that on to us. And so, we had a huge problem with thinking that we should try to do anything with our lives. Our parents certainly didn't promote that. And when my brothers were doing drugs, they actually allowed it. And when my mother knew that my brother was sexually using me, my mother allowed it. It was kind of like my parents were so screwed up in the head because of the abuse that they suffered as children, that they just thought that was life. And they would sit around and they'd say, this is life, and they'd be like, they got busted on child abuse charges and brought in, hauled into court, and they were, my mother pleaded with the judge to let her keep her children. Oh, these are all I have. I don't have anything else. Don't take my children, pleading with the courts. And she just didn't want to look like a bad mother. You know what I mean? That's all it was. It was ego. She didn't want to look like a bad mother. She tried to put it all off on my dad, saying it was all my dad. But of course the older siblings were a lot older, and they told the judge, they were like, no, she's involved too, and she's just as much an abuser as our dad. And so they were both busted. Both had to go for psychological testing. And they were both found mentally ill at the time. And so, they were coming from behind the eight ball themselves when they got married and then had this family, and they never had gotten any help for their issues. And then they raised us with these strange, bizarre belief systems and abused us. They made us hate ourselves, Like two of my brothers killed themselves. One of my sisters used to try to kill herself. She had a gun, and we were pretty sure she would kill herself and her husband or just herself or whatever. But murder was always on her mind. My parents were murderous, And, you try to bring up a little child, a little girl, 7, 8 years old, running around trying to be normal in this whole thing, playing with paper dolls. It's hard. It's extremely hard to try to experience anything what normal people would consider normal behavior. You know what I mean? Because there was no normal behavior in my home, so this is just it. So thinking that we have the right to ask for and expect something in life, that was just not part of the deal for us. So even today, I have a hard time believing that I can get help if I need it. But I'm older now, so I know that that's the truth of it. We all have the opportunity to get help, and we just have to reach out. You know what I mean? And if we don't get the help that we need, because so many people don't the first few times, first few go-arounds, that's just always the case. You have to keep looking, right? And I hear this from so many websites. I see this from so many sites, especially from dealing with therapy and counseling and whatnot. They say if you don't find a good counselor and therapist, you just keep looking, because not everyone's going to be able to relate to each one of us, right? And not everybody's going to specialize in many of the things that we need help with. So, they say it's just like a doctor. You have to go to the right doctor to get the right things done, right? You can't show up at a dentist office wanting somebody to fix your leg, it'd be like, and show up at a surgeon trying to get something done with your nails. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you got to show up at the right place and get the right help. But we certainly do deserve to have we have to believe that we have the right to ask for and expect something in life. You know what I mean? We do. We all do. And a lot of people don't believe that, but that's something that we need to remember. Comparison of myself with another is meaningless. This is something else that Robert Burney put here. Comparison of myself with another is meaningless. That's very true. We can compare ourselves to people all the time, and all we're going to do is get hurt, because we're going to be thinking we need to live by their standards and according to their ways of life and according to their, whatever they've got. You know what I mean? It's like trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's like, okay, I'm not good enough, and I need to come up because so-and-so has a brand new car over there and I don't, or, this person has this great job and I'm just doing, trying to compare ourselves all the time to other people. It's just not a good idea, because everyone's different and we're all living our lives. We all have this journey we have to make, and each journey is our own. So my journey is my journey, your journey is your journey. Our journeys are not the same at all. And so trying to compare ourselves to somebody else is absolutely ridiculous, and I absolutely don't do it. I refuse to do it. So, and I really don't care who likes where I'm at right now. I don't have this issue of trying to present myself so that people will accept me. I had to learn how to accept myself, and how to love myself. I really don't care too much what the world thinks about my situation, because they have no clue where I've been, and they have no idea how hard it's been for me, how hard it's been for a lot of people. I'm not the only one. I mean, my God, there's people out here through every kind of situation you can think of trying to make it. So why judge ourselves by somebody else? That's absolutely ridiculous. And so I refuse to do it. I live in it's an oil-rich area, Alberta, just like Houston, Texas. There's lots of money here. And everybody seems like everybody's driving a brand new car, and they're all living in these beautiful multi-level $600,000-$700,000 homes, with this, driving beautiful cars, wearing beautiful clothing, and I really don't care. I don't try to judge myself by these people. You know what I mean? I'd be miserable if I did, because I'd be trying to scratch and claw and be somebody that I'm not to get where they are, and end up at the end of the road saying, why was I trying to live somebody else's life? This is not my life. I mean, I was trying to live some sort of corporate life that I have no desire or need or want to live. You know what I mean? So we need to live our lives. But in order to do that, we have to find out who we are and what journey we're on. You know what I mean? Because we all have this unique, beautiful journey in life, and we all have this beautiful life that we all need to figure out what it is and live it to the best of your abilities, and live it to the best that you can. It has very little to do with who's got what next door and why we're not as good as them because we don't have this $5 billion in the account. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, money does not buy happiness. Lots of people say it does, but I think they're completely wrong, because I actually know lots of people with money, and they're not happy. So there you go. Money isn't everything. Oh, my good friend Gypsy Witch is here. Hello, Gypsy Witch, and I have some other guests on here as well. Yeah, and I had a troll on here too. I had to boot off. I had to kick off. So that's why I don't answer my phone and take calls on this show. I have a lot of trolls who phone in and say all kinds of disgusting and disturbing things, and I just feel sorry for them because they're so twisted and so disturbed that that's all they can do on, in the morning on a Tuesday morning. It's like, okay, go find something else to do that's more productive. But I feel sorry for those people, because it's obvious that they're sick and twisted. But that's all right. I grew up with sick and twisted people. I just pray for them. But anyway, we can't judge ourselves by other people. We really can't, and I don't. I like to. That's one thing that I think I've actually been very. Very good at doing, is not trying to keep up with the Joneses and just living my life and doing what I want. You know what I mean? As far as like what kind of a journey I'm on and how I want to live my life. I'm not comparing myself to anybody, so I feel like I'm perfectly at the point where I need to be. And I don't mind thinking, okay, I have goals. I have lots of goals and lots of dreams, and I think that's important. But it's not just to keep up with the Jones so that the neighbors will think, oh, look at that, or, oh, she's doing really well just because she has a new Beamer or something. I mean, who cares? Like, I don't have a car. I got foot power, and it's probably the best thing for me because I need the exercise. But, I don't care what those people think, because they're not living my life. I'm not living theirs, and it makes no difference to me what they think. You know what I mean? What really matters is what I think. And I think that I'm doing really quite well because I'm still alive. You know what I mean? I could have killed myself years ago. And, it was very close many times, throughout my life. And I'm still here, and I now celebrate life instead of hate it. I used to hate life, and I hated myself. So for me, I mean, I've done really well because I love myself now. And this is why this positive affirmation stuff is really important. Because it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to believe it. You know what I mean? And I started to say it and didn't believe it when I first started out. I started to say these things. I do love myself. I do love myself. But I hadn't learned how to believe it yet. I started to say it. I'd say about 6 months into it, I started to really believe it. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I do love myself. And I started to go through all this stuff, and I realized that I wanted to be good to myself, and I also wanted to be good to other people, and that I did have love in my heart. So these positive affirmations are very important, and Robert Burney's got some great stuff. So that's www.joy, the number 2, MEU.com, and that's the website for anybody who's listening to the archive or listening live from somewhere else. Thanks very much for being here. I have quite a few people in the chat room here today, and thanks very much for tuning in. I appreciate it. My good friend Gypsy Witch from Australia is here. Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you have a good night. And, you're always here with me, so that's awesome. So take care, everybody. Have a great day. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, same place, and hopefully you have a good day. Make sure you reach out. Don't allow yourself to suffer on in silence, and even if you're just doing self-help, you make sure you stick it out, right? And if you can't cope, you phone a crisis line, but you do something. You make sure that you stick around and you get some help, because we do deserve to have a good life. We do deserve to be here. So many people don't think so, but that's the truth. And we do deserve to be able to get help where we can, right? So make sure you do reach out and get help if you can't cope and you're just feeling like, you can't do it. You make sure you get some help, right? Stick around. So have a good day, everybody. Talk to you soon.